Watching the stream. We're not live yet. Yeah, go from Panema. Stream. Okay, we're not live yet. We are live.
All righty.
So, welcome everybody. Welcome to Staying Sane, the experimental podcast. I'm very happy to have my co-host, Cassandra McLean, who is a hypnotherapist out of Florida. She represents Get Hypnotherapy. My name is Albert Nuremberg. I represent Albert Nuremberg Hypnosis. And we really felt it was important to actually have people like ourselves talking about the nature of both sanity, staying sane in these crazy times. That's the simplest way of explaining this idea. Today we're going to talk about transcending victimhood. And you may want to, I'm sure you have a take on why that matters. Why does it matter?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Them? You, the audience. Yeah. Why does it matter? Ponder this while Albert scans his screen for the window we're going to share with you in a moment. But answer for yourself. Transcending victimhood. Does that feel like something you want to do? We suggest that it should.
So here, let us play. I'm going to try playing a video, except that, of course, Zoom has reorganized my windows. I apologize for all the clicking. I'm going to show you a video that it relates to this phenomena that we just thought was intriguing. So you should see it now. Let me pull it up.
There's no question that modern psychotherapy and psychology is profoundly narcissistic. How you feel is the message of most psychotherapists. Every psychologist and psychiatrist I've had on my radio show for decades, I've asked, how many in your profession are competent? And they almost all answer the same, about a third. So 2/3 are incompetent. That's correct. A lot of therapists are there to reinforce the patient's feelings of being a victim, which is usually a perverse form, or not perverse, psychopathologic form of self-centeredness. It's narcissism. Oh, you feel you were hurt by your parents? You certainly were. Instead of, you know what, everybody's hurt by their parents. That's part of life. And it's time for you. You're now 25. This happened when you were 9. It's time for you to grow up. How many therapists say that? They're afraid they'll lose a patient. And then they probably will. People often go to therapists to feel vindicated in their victimhood, not to actually get better.
So, powerful clip. I gotta say,
there's a lot there.
There's a lot there, and I'm not here to talk about the competence of psychologists or psychiatrists. The point here is more that in the general therapy business, are people in the business of creating victim mentalities and victim states for clients, and is that a problem?
I would say yes, it's a problem. I want to, a bunch of stuff comes up for me watching that. The first one is that guy, and he's a real character. You know, he's an old school dude. And I respect it because we need some of that grit, you know? But he's like, you know, it's happened when you were 9. It's time to grow up. He's right. But telling your conscious mind, hey, it's time to grow up, that doesn't work. If it did, people would just respond to that. Oh, you're right. It is. Okay, I made the choice. I've grown up. The problem is that inwardly, that 9-year-old who was being hurt in that moment, whether it was just an offhanded remark that landed especially cold and just like impressed itself upon your subconscious, like, now I feel stupid forever. That's what happens. Or it was something really extreme, like getting badly abused, like whatever the thing was that happened then, it's still here in the present. So telling somebody, hey, it's not happening anymore. First of all, that's not true. It's still running in the back of their mind, deeply hidden in the recesses, and it's playing somewhere. And then you end up in a situation in real life, in present day unfolding life, and it activates that inner 9-year-old who felt that, and a 9-year-old responds through your mouth, through your eyes, through your ears. you're a 9-year-old again.
Can I just frame this? Maybe we should frame this, correctly, which is that the issue is, and what he's getting to is that therapists often culture a victim mentality in their clients by listening, by being empathetic. It's all well intentioned in my view, which is that we listen to, what happened to you? Why do you feel that you are the way you are? What are the things? Who hurt you? And so this is real. The problem he's pointing out, and I think accurately, is that people go too deep and go too far.
Deep into what?
Into the victim state. So for example, I think you're saying, you if you feel like your father was hard on you, I can't just say stop feeling that. But what I think that therapy sometimes does is it goes deep into things that maybe weren't so bad. Like, for example, as he points out, everybody could feel like they were abused by their parents. Everybody could feel that. And not everybody was abused by their parents. It's sort of a weird distortion. So that's the weird challenge. What should therapists do? Because all of us are trained or have developed techniques of being empathetic, understanding, listening. How do we avoid culturing the victim mentality? And also, we should explain what's wrong with the victim mentality.
I'm sorry. I didn't silence my phone. I'm like, what is pinging in my room? Oh, it's the phone that's right here. I'm so sorry. What is wrong with the victim mentality is that it's the complete opposite of an empowered state of mind. An empowered state of mind says, I can change the situation of my life. I can control my emotions. I can live better today than I lived yesterday. I can create a better, brighter future for not just myself, but also my relationship with my mom, with my dad. I have the power to change things and move them in the direction I want them to go in. A victim doesn't. A victim is, oh, well, I want to have the power, but I don't because somebody took it away from me and I'll never get it back.
That's exactly right. I think the second part of it is there's a toxic aspect, which is victims require blaming. So it's not that you arrived at being at a messed up life that isn't working for you. It's that somebody made you this way. And if it wasn't for them, you would apparently be fine. So now it may be true. I mean, it is true that in some cases, other people mess with your life. But I think the key thing is that as a hypnotherapist, I have always found, and this is a common sort of theme in this business, is that when people are stuck in life, if there's a stuckness, it is often that the victim mentality is right there. The victim mentality creates stuckness because people keep reinforcing the fact that the world picks on me, the world hurts me, the world doesn't do what I want it to do. And that reminds me of what my parents did or my abusive narcissistic partner did in my last relationship. Now, I don't want to say that there aren't examples of abusive parents or abusive childhoods. Those things are real, or abusive partners. Those things are real. However, knowing the difference and asking also, what do you do with that? Let's say we recognize that your parents were abusive and they were hard on you and they traumatized you. What do you do with that rather than staying in the victim role?
Well, to my earlier tangent, which was actually quite connected, is you as an adult, the take 3 deep breaths, really breathe into your belly and then feel into who you are today. That version of you can go into a session of hypnosis and rescue that 9-year-old who keeps showing up and taking over your life. You have the power to rescue the victim. That is like really important. And you're not going to do that in a session of talk therapy. It's just not possible. You need to be in an altered state for it to, like, if you've been there, it's like, whoa, this is different. Okay. I'm not thinking about this. This is emerging from within. That I think is really important, is just awareness that there are things that do work. Because for many people, I mean, we need to like get into the reality of this person who chooses to go to therapy and ends up having this, one of the 2/3 of the profession who are incompetent as judged by their peers, who's just like, oh yeah, I just need you to keep coming and paying me. So yeah, that's so bad that that happened to you. I'm so sorry. Let's talk and analyze it more and more and more. Why are they why are they finding themselves in that cycle in the first place? Probably don't feel like they have anybody like they can talk to, or if they do, that person or those people don't really provide valuable advice or like a honest, sincere listening space. So I find that many healthy enough people, right? If you have like schizophrenia, right? We're not talking about these people, they need like real true psychiatric medical care. But for those of us who are just like, yeah, I mean, I've got my life together, like I have my bills paid and I'm functional and I have hygiene and I have some friends and stuff, like I'm okay, but like I'm not okay. These people, they're in therapy for their reasons. And I think that one of them is that they don't know that there's better things that work faster and more efficiently. Hypnotherapy is like the one that we're really putting, and that's what you need to know. Like you don't have to just sit there and like get tissues with somebody. You can really change your life pretty quickly.
I think what people don't know, hypnotherapy is an action medium because of trance. Trance lets you do things as opposed to just talk. Not that talk is always bad, but that there is that difference. But I think that what is really interesting is that, and not nobody, what's interesting about the video we just played is this is one of the first examples of a person who's in the industry speaking out. I would describe that the current therapeutic approach, and it's not just in the therapy side of things, it's also in the medical side. We are creating a victim machine. There's a machine that says, if you have many conditions, like, you're on your way to type 2 diabetes, it's not your fault. You have no agency. It is, the food industry. If you are developing a depression, there's a chemical malfunction in your brain. If you have bipolar, there's a chemical malfunction in your brain. There, at no point do we give people, first of all, responsibility for their outcomes. And I'm not saying that it is your fault. I'm just saying the victim mentality creates this idea that you're just this innocent person who had no part in the condition you came to. And changing the victim mentality is a way for people to get out of that trap. And the victim machine is getting bigger and bigger, is getting stronger and stronger because people want to be victims. They want to believe that there's a conspiracy against them that explains why things are bad, not that they're not doing the right things. Now, I want to also say, as somebody who has a social view of the world, there is a bit of a conspiracy against people to succeed and get out of the troubles in your life. That's what's tricky about this. It's true, not true. It's true, not true.
Well, I'm going to push this a little further because there's some things you said I agree with and others I pause. The secondary benefit of identifying as a victim. And again, it's not something people are consciously choosing. If I say you want an apple or an orange, people choose what you want. If I say you want to be a victim or not a victim, of course I don't want to be a victim. On a deep, deep level, you are choosing to continue to feel that you are a victim. Now, one thing that's very important for me, and you've heard me say this before, and you'll hear me say it many more times, you can have been victimized. It doesn't mean you are a victim. To be a victim is a sense of identity. I am a hypnotherapist. I am a singer. I am a pianist. This is part of who I am. If I am a victim, that's part of who I am. If I say I was victimized, I was just walking down the street, 2 men came out from an alley, grabbed me, did horrible, unspeakable things to me. That happened. Did I play a role in that? Oh. But as soon as it ended and I was back to safety, who continues victimizing me if I stay in that role? Those men are gone. I either keep them with me and let them keep playing out in my head, victimizing me over and over and over again. I'm a victim, I'm a victim, I'm a victim. Or I say I was victimized in this way. Or even in my childhood, my parents were abusive at the time in a certain way, but I'm no longer the victim of my parents' mistakes. I'm no longer the victim of that horrible traumatic incident that happened to me. I am a person who is growing through it, learning to move on, and choosing the difficult path of taking responsibility for my life, regardless of who did what to me.
This is why actually that therapy requires goals, because I think I actually fully agree with you that when those men, so I'm going with your example, you're walking down the street and you were attacked by, you had a traumatic experience where a bunch of people attacked you, let's say physically. It's not your fault. You are the victim of that experience. And then not only that, you may be traumatized, which would cause those experiences to replay in your mind over and over again. So that perpetuates the problem. Now, what we know is if that person is to get better, it is okay for them and it is right for them to accept and also be told you were victimized, you were a victim of a traumatic experience, or you're a victim of bad, abusive people. That's all true. And it's good for you to recognize. You may want to say, I'm the kind of person who is a physical attack survivor or victim. That's all fair as well. The issue is,
I don't like it.
well, I'm just using, you know where I'm going.
Go ahead.
So I'm just saying, accepting your victimhood there is okay. It's the need to have goals to move to healing that is often not done. So when do you stop being a victim? When do you let this go? When do you heal from that trauma? That's what needs to happen for the person to get better. And we don't focus on that. And this is where, the clip that we showed talked about why so much therapy is run by incompetence, is because if it's okay, I will make more money if we go in a perpetual loop where we keep talking about the same thing over and over again. But I will make less money if you get better. And it's worth people knowing that that is an issue in this business. I'm not talking about hypnotherapy. I'm talking about therapy in general.
Yeah. And the unfortunate thing about that is how fundamentally wrong it is. If my clients come to me and I heal them up so good in such a short period of time, there's 8 billion people suffering on this planet. I'm not running out of people to help. These people are just like, oh my God, she helped me so much. Here, take her business card. You go see her next. It actually is completely wrong to want to keep my clients as my patients in like a sickly, weakened state. Keep coming back, keep coming back. And the other thing is that I've noticed that therapists do this. They will say to their clients that they've graduated, like, oh, it's classic sales pitch. Okay. Right. Because you do the consultations, discovery call. I'm speaking from experience, not just my own, but in conversations with friends who have lived exactly what I'm going to describe. Perhaps you, dear audience, have also experienced this. You get on your consultation because you're looking for like, okay, I need to talk to somebody, maybe this person, maybe that person. And they say, I really want to see that you don't need me anymore. I'm here to help you so that you feel so much better that you don't have to keep coming back. And it sounds so good. It's like, wow, this person really, yeah. But what is then given is like a false graduation because you're like puffed up enough to be like, oh, okay. And then they'll say like, somebody said this to me once. He said, think of me like a car mechanic. You don't have to keep coming back every week to your mechanic, but when you need a tune up, you can always come back. I'm like, okay, good. So how long until I needed a tune up from my false graduation because nothing was really healed at the source? That one particular issue that was what brought me in there, that was made better enough. And I'd done enough there. But my core sense of self, my inner resources, my strengths weren't strengthened. I was just coping. And this is another thing you'll hear me say hundreds of times. I don't believe in the coping model at all. I believe in a healing model. Coping says you have this problem, you're always going to have this problem, and I'll help you learn how to manage it a little better, or maybe a lot better. But either way, you're managing a problem that you have. The healing model says you have a problem, Let's resolve it.
Simple. I actually think it's
Oh.
true. But I think that model is kind of the minority. I think the view is that therapy, the conventional view, therapy is that you sign up for a 3-year process and that you move very slowly because that's what it takes. Because it's just hard to figure things out. And then maybe after 3 years, there'll be some improvement. That's the model. But the hypnotherapy model, we should point out, is different. The hypnotherapy model is you often get results within a few sessions. 4 or 5 sessions become usually quite concrete. Something should have happened.
You can change your life in 4 to 5 sessions.
Yeah, you're on your way within, a month or two. And so it's a different way of approaching healing and therapy. And that's so his point that modern psychotherapy creates victims seems correct because of the business model. Because again, the victim reinforces. So he also made this interesting point that when you convince somebody, or a person becomes convinced they were terribly abused, often by their parents, even maybe they weren't that badly treated by their parents, then they descend into a victim state. And each session kind of reinforces that because, of course, I'm not getting better because, boy, my parents were bad to me. I'm not changing because, boy, my parents were bad to me. And so it creates a industry model, but also a sort of toxic personality. And then I have found this exact thing. Those people then come to you and they usually are dissatisfied because maybe their therapist sort of wised up and said, I don't know if you're getting better. And it might be because you're sort of feeling sorry for yourself. And so then they go get a new therapist, and that might be you. And it is very hard. And this is just to be fair. It is very hard for somebody to say, wait a second, it does sound like you blame a lot of people for your problems and take no responsibility
Not
for
at all.
So what's that? Is it hard to say that? Or
I never blame anybody. It's not a blaming. There's no blame involved. This is not a blame game.
But I'm saying it is hard for somebody to challenge somebody who walks in their door and says, I have these patterns and I feel victimized by my parents, and my therapist didn't understand me. Do you understand me? Of course I'm going to say, well, let me try. Because I don't know any of the facts or reality of the situation.
Yes, I think it's important to note, though, that people don't come to us and say, hey, I feel victimized by. People who are trapped in victim mindset don't even really have this vocabulary. They're in a mindset that they don't even know they're acting like a victim. They don't say, I'm a victim. They say other things. They say things like, he did this to me and he did that to me. And I want to move on, but he just did this. I can't believe he did this. And he hurt me, and he hurt me so bad. He used me. He took advantage of me. I can't trust anybody again now because I was just hurt so badly by that last person. Now I can't trust newly. I can't find love in the future because of how badly my heart was broken. He did all these terrible things to me. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it does. That's very accurate. But also, I think, look, I also want to make it really clear. Just if you're just joining us, this is the Staying Sane, an experimental podcast about how to stay sane in this crazy world. That we should say we are not saying that abuse does not exist. We're not saying that people can't be victimized. Those things happen
all the time.
They happen all the time.
And we're very sympathetic to that.
Yeah, it's not saying that at all. What it is saying is that there is something about the way we process these things or deal with these things that is problematic. If you are always reinforcing how badly you were victimized, which I understand the tendency to do that because it's a deep wound. It hurt a lot. It has caused ripples throughout my life. So of course you want to go deeper. There is a role for going deeper. Going deeper and understanding things is important. But what is more important is moving through and moving on, right? And so that's the part that we don't focus on because it's hard to move through and it is hard to move on for some people.
Well, that most people don't focus on, but you and I, we do. We are focusing on it right now.
I was thinking of a slogan for this podcast would be, there's an old Scottish saying where they say, I everyone in the world is completely crazy. I have a terrible Scottish accent. I apologize. Except for you and I. And I'm beginning to wonder about you. But the point is that I think that is a natural tendency too, to start thinking that other people in the world, they're all crazy except for us.
Yeah. Cool. So, right. The other thing that this, I don't know who that man was that we showed in the clip. But he was talking about narcissistic psychopathology. Not just, the victim part comes at the end, but it is a complete thought. And the first half of it is about the narcissism that is my feelings are what matter the most. It's how I feel, it's how I feel, it's how I feel. And it's so important. It's more important than everything else is my feelings.
And can I tell you how this is served by modern therapy? Is that people will say, because there's a debate around, let's say, abuse or sexual abuse, all these things, that the therapist will say, don't let anyone tell you that it's not true, that you weren't abused. And that's not the debate. It's like, it's true probably that you were abused. It's like, are you still on it? Have you still not been able to move on? Have you still been unable to heal it? That's the deeper question, I guess.
Yeah. And if the answer to that question is, yes, I'm still on it, I haven't been able to heal it. And you've also been in cycles of going to talk therapy and you're still arriving at the, I'm not able to heal this. You're really a well-suited candidate for hypnotherapy. It's time to experience what really healing through something feels like.
Yeah.
It's not a conversation. I'll tell you that. It's not just dialogue. Oh, maybe it was because of, and how did that? No.
Yeah.
And so much of that. I'm so done with that.
I do want to say that I'm also not condemning people talking about their problems. I think that is good. But
I talk about my problems all the time.
Yeah. And also even talk therapy in itself, it's again, like in life, if somebody says you're all talk and no action, that's a pretty fair criticism. If you're going to build up feeling that something needs to change, that's a pretty fair criticism. And not do something about it, then it's a fair criticism. So I just think we came across another interesting clip. We won't play it now unless you really want to see it, but where there's a vast increase in familial estrangement, which I didn't know. I just figured it was roughly the same as has always been. But it turns out that more people than ever are becoming estranged from their parents, brothers, siblings, ex-lovers. And the theory is that therapy is doing it because look, think about it this way too. Even think about your great, I'm sure you've had good and
I don't know if was it a theory or was it just this one like influencer asking, could there be a relationship here?
Sorry, yeah, it's one influencer asking based on research.
Right. So, and it's a good question. That's why we're talking about it. But I just wanted to stipulate it's not like a well-formulated theory.
So let me to explain his theory is that he's saying that he looked at statistics for how the percentage of people going to therapy has increased quite dramatically in America. And at the same time, as it seems to correlate with the number of people who've become estranged from family members and also friends and siblings and exes. His point being that his belief was that therapy convinces these people that they were horribly, sometimes terribly abused by people, but sorry, I shouldn't say that, because I think people are fairly careful about what constitutes abuse. But maybe what it is that by going deeper into it, we would say that, you might have had a perfectly good relationship with somebody, but you had some arguments and they might have yelled at you and there might have been difficult moments. And if you go back to them and somebody goes, hey, was that traumatic? And you go deeper into it, you might soon discover that there was, a little bit of an abusive component to that. Now, if I step back, I would say, no, that was a pretty good relationship all around, but yeah, it had some moments. if I go and say, oh, that was dark and I was victimized, I should never talk about to that person again. I'm going to ban them from my life. Boundaries, all these things are good. Boundaries are good. There are some people
it's a misappropriation of boundaries. But
right.
again, I keep coming back to this happens because of an absence of a state of mind where you feel empowered. I don't need to create boundaries around myself unless I believe these people can hurt me. I can be hurt. Again, they've hurt me in the past and they just keep hurting me. And I'm just going to put this huge boundary up and say,
I actually had to say some people make boundaries. I make boundaries when people waste your time. Like they just waste your time. So I'm like, I'd rather not. That's a boundary, but they haven't hurt me necessarily. So
sure, but the misappropriation of boundaries is, and in related to the conversation of, is there a prevalence of talk therapists creating a victimhood in their patients and saying, okay, this person hurt you, maybe put some boundaries. Boundaries are a wonderful concept. We need boundaries, 100%. That's a really important topic that can go very deeply in another moment. But yes to boundaries. But the misappropriation of boundaries is don't talk to your mom. Ice her out. You don't need her. Instead of that, it's just, I'm so in my mind, I hear all the voices. Just because somebody's your mother doesn't mean that they ever did anything good for you. It's like, maybe all they did was abuse you, but it's still a relationship where you want to have an orientation within yourself of loving kindness and forgiveness, not terrible fear, horrible resentment, guilt, shame, hatred.
The only thing I would say is I agree with you, but I would say that I think we're all a little bit fumbling in the dark. Like I'll give the example of I have clients who have had parents who were malignant narcissists by their definition, by the definition of the child. And so one of the rules with malignant narcissists is disconnect. And because that person has such a toxic effect on you, that never stops. It never gets better. So there are examples of times where the boundary might be full disconnection, and probably that is the right thing to do, but we have no way, because these are new ideas and there's no way that you can check with a meter to say how much of a malignant narcissist is my mom. Is it the right amount that justifies disconnecting? It just doesn't exist. So these are all calls that people are making that may be right or wrong.
I don't think anybody has to have any sort of relationship with any other person, regardless of the relationship. But what I'm speaking to is the relationship inside of yourself. When you think about your mom, whether or not you've talked to her yesterday or haven't talked to her in 12 years, if the thought is creating this intense negative emotion inside of you, that's your responsibility to clear your heart and soul of that. Because obviously not talking to her for 12 years didn't do it.
I mean, this is definitely going on more and more. I hear it all the time where people, often people are saying that their kids don't talk to them, and they're like, of course the question is like, what did you do, or did you? And they're often completely baffled. And I don't think that they're clueless, meaning they just don't know why it is cool to get mad at your parents. It is cool. And just think about
it's trendy. I agree. There's something trendy, and you get a lot of sympathy for that. Like I follow an Instagrammer. She's like a poet in New York City, and she like puts her typewriter out on the corner of the street, and she charges $50 a poem. And this girl's making bank. It's like ridiculous. If you want, like I looked, it was like get a poem for Christmas, like send a poem to somebody. I think she was charging like $250 for like a poem. I was like, damn, this girl like figured her shit out. So she's got a big following. She's like obviously young and sexy. That doesn't hurt that she's like, super cute. But she started posting a few months ago, like, today marks 2 months of going no contact with my dad, and like a celebration, and people be, commenting like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, this is so unhealthy, This is not something to celebrate. And then all these strangers just supporting it without knowing any details of the situation at all. Where's the voice of reason? Where's the voice that says, hey, let's stay sane here? even if it's true that you're now no longer speaking to your parent, it's like treat that situation with some respect. It's not something you like post on your Instagram stories for likes. It's like, this is a serious decision you've made in your life. Treat it as that.
I should say, as a parent, just to knock on wood, it hasn't happened to me, but I can only imagine how painful that would be to just out of the blue find out that your kids don't want to talk to you. That's very rough. And to find out that it is a cultural phenomena too must be difficult and hard. And I just think that's why I say one thing that is a recurring theme in my work is the measure of things. I know it sounds funny because it sounds like rulers and thermometers and measure, but like I said, is that everyone can feel that their parents abuse them. Everyone could feel that. But is the measure that they are fundamentally bad people because of that? Or that they actually did better than you did on some level at raising you than you being their kid? I just think some humility is sometimes in order on these things. And again, how do we know? And I would say, rather than say everyone's doing it wrong, which is not what I'm saying, I just say this is kind of a gray area that needs more discussion. Because sure, there are reasons why people need to cut people out of their lives who are hurting them or toxic, but it seems to be a little out of control and it's run amok a bit.
Yes, but it's also because we've raised our standards of childcare. So I imagine when you were a child, even a little bit on the tail end of my childhood, and as I was sharing with you earlier, like I got hit on the ass with a wooden spoon when I was just a little peanut of like 35 pounds. And I remember this was one of my most traumatic memories, was being at my grandparents' house and my mom laughing and making a joke out of having hit me so hard that I broke the wooden spoon. Or better said, she hit me so hard she broke a wooden spoon on the little tushy of like a little cute little girl who was just like being a menace, whatever. But like the humiliation I felt of like, this is like a comedy for you? Are you kidding me? So that's like really fucked up.
Yeah.
And in the world we live in today, like CPS would be getting called on my mom. And that's probably for good. We want like, no, you can't like hit your kid with objects. You probably shouldn't even be using your hand, whether it's an open or a closed or whatever. That's a whole other topic, right? That society is in general like, hey, I was like hit. That was like fucked up, that really altered my personality. Yes. Does it mean you should never talk to your mom again?
Right. Yeah. Like, here's a good question. If you were in talk therapy, I would be like, whoa, did you just say that your mother broke a wooden spoon on your butt? And you'd be like, yeah. How did that feel? How do you think it affected you?
Oh my God, it was horrible. It was horrible. I was humiliated. I couldn't trust my mother.
This explains why you maybe have trust issues in other relationships.
And here we go.
Here we go.
And here we go.
And here we go. And of course, let's talk about that next week because we're just out of time.
So now if this person comes to me in a session and they're like, yeah, I want to go back to this memory. It stayed with me. And this is where I was. And can you regress me? I would say, how did you feel in that moment? I need to get that information so I can use the affect bridge, as you know. And we would talk about how it felt, and I would be really compassionate. I work with people who've survived heinous shit and grown men just breaking down into tears, remembering the like trauma. I'm just a wide open heart, like beating pure love. I'm only love for this moment. And real love is like, you deserve to move past this and live free from this. That's real love, is I want to set you free from having to continue living this over and over. So we will ask, how did that make you feel? How did it make you feel? And then the next thing will be, and are you ready to enter hypnosis? Are you ready to do the work that we can do so that you don't ever have to feel this again? It's not, how does that affect your relationship with your husband? I remember last week you told me about how he did this. Maybe it's connected to that mom thing.
Yeah, very interesting because exactly. I think so. I'm not. I don't think we are saying, as hypnotherapists, we are morally superior to any kind of therapist for this because of our attitude. It's that hypnotherapy is an action medium which allows you to move fairly quickly from process to process. So, one, you telling me about this traumatic incident that is it was painful and abusive and discouraging for you. Let's work on that. And then what's interesting, maybe a lot of people don't know this, but some of the protocols, many of the protocols are testable, meaning right after doing them or the next session, you can test where is that trauma? How does it feel? And it can often feel completely different. It can feel very different. And so now we can move on. We can go on to the next one. And that's the pace at which it goes pretty fast, usually. Now, not in every situation, but often.
So if you're estranged from a parent or a sibling and you want to take responsibility for the opportunity to build a bridge back to a sense of love or at least alignment, or I don't know. People like the word like civility. Like, can we just be civil? Can we just be amicable? Like something decent? Isn't that better than total estrangement from your blood?
Yeah. Yes. And I can say,
But it does take a lot. I really respect people who are willing to do this work because it takes something. It takes something of the fiber of your being to, okay, because it's really hurtful. We don't choose to cut our moms or dads or siblings out of our lives unless we've been hurt really bad and a lot. It takes a lot of hurt feelings to arrive to that point. It's not like one incident. And I hope that, even in I go into like these theatrical displays of acting things out. It's not to diminish or belittle the reality. I didn't talk to my own father for 13 years. You didn't know that about me.
no.
We had a 13-year estrangement, my father and I.
And how do you look at it now?
I'm glad he's in my life.
Mm.
He's still just a bucket of problems. Like I'm not going to be here in a public forum and speak ill of my family. But I could, and I promise you would be convinced. I promise.
Mm.
But I choose to be the maturing adult. There's something that my mentor, Matthew Brownstein, taught me. He said, in evolution, the next generation is supposed to be better than the previous generation. That's evolution. And in like psychologically, we don't get that. It's good that I am more emotionally mature than my parents. It means that the bloodline is strengthening. We're getting hardier as a people. I can look at my father and I know it's like, I'm never going to do hypnotherapy on him. He's never going to talk to anybody about anything. He's going to do what he's always done. He's going to be the way he's always been. And I'm just going to accept him. And when he doesn't do what I wanted him to, doesn't say what I wanted him to, says the thing I really didn't. When my best friend died last month, my best friend in the world died.
Yeah,
Less than 1 week later, my father said to me, Cassandra, you have to move on. It's called acceptance. Just suck it up. I'm like, this is your advice for grieving because you're in your 70s and your best friend is going to drop dead any day now. So tell me exactly what your advice is. And I will make sure I repeat it back to you word for word. And I wrote it down. It's hanging on my fridge and it says, Dad's advice for grieving. 1, suck it up. 2, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Right?
That would be an example of what we're not recommending is that you are, there's a reality. You are allowed to grieve I'm sorry to say, your best friend, and you're very much allowed to grieve, and it might take you some time. That would be fair. That's why these things are tricky. They're hard to define, but that's an example of I would say, your father saying the wrong thing. You
right,
should ban him from your life. I'm joking.
Even in that conversation, instead of being like, because I'm a mature adult and I recognize I'm more emotionally mature than he is. And so I just accept him that as he is. I make, we have a banter. And I did say all those things and I did write it down. And that when his best friend dies, I'm going to do it. You're going to get it, man. I'm not going to do it day of. But like 4 days later, which is about what leniency I was given. All right, well, it's called acceptance, Dad. You knew
Look it
he was
up.
going to die. You're old men. Time to move on. And
Yeah.
just see, like, you got to taste your own medicine. People don't understand how they are until they experience how they are. Sometimes we have to just be a brutal mirror. Like, this is what you're up to right now. I don't like it. Well, that's what I had to face. So now
Yeah.
you have to face it too.
Yeah.
In fact, if I can go on a little tangent of my father's parenting strategies, this was one of his good ones. I highly recommend this. When I would have tantrums, like I'm like 4 or 5 years old, his method of punishing, again, I like this one, was that he would take a tape recorder and put it in the room and let me just wail and scream and yell. And then when I was calmed down, he would make me sit in a chair and listen to the whole thing.
Great.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
But anyway, am I glad he's in my life now after the 13 years estranged? I'm very glad. And when he's being that way, it's like, whatever. This is just my dad. He's on the phone with me. We're connected. I love him. He loves me. He says dumb shit. He's X, Y, and Z, but he's my dad, and I'm glad that we can talk. It's as simple as that. It's just simple.
It is also a reality of maturity that you recognize as you learn more about your imperfections, which I have, then you start to be more accepting of other people's imperfections. And it explains why young people are more likely to ban people from their lives, because they see themselves as kind of sometimes, I'm not because when you're young, you're less aware of your sometimes less aware of your flaws and faults and mistakes. As you go through life, you make more mistakes. And so for that reason, people sometimes ban people from their lives, even though for things that they themselves would do or also do. So part of growing up, I guess, is recognizing that we are imperfect, that we are flawed and vulnerable, and that we make mistakes too.
And here on the Staying Sane podcast, we are very much making equal growing up mentally and emotionally with sanity.
Yes. A good question. Why? Because why does it make you sane? Because one of the things that makes you sane is being able to see reality roughly as it is. Though I would say, I wouldn't make the case that seeing reality as it is makes you more sane. I don't think it does. I'd like to think it does, but I don't think it does.
Well, we could go into a little philosophy on this, because what does it even mean to see reality as it is? It means to see objective reality without layering on top of it a subjective interpretation. So even something heinous, right? Like that woman is hitting that 4-year-old with a wooden spoon. I already just made it heinous by calling it that. What's the objective reality? There's a person, there's a wooden spoon, there's a littler person, and they're getting hit. Does it mean that's a bad mom? Does it mean that's a bad kid? Is it abuse? Is it just a woman at her wit's end? Am I compassionate for the child? Maybe I'm compassionate for the mother. Maybe that kid just did something real fucked up. I don't really know. I make it mean something, and that's subjective reality. And when we talk about seeing reality as it really is, that is almost impossible. And if you're looking to distinguish what is objective reality, you must first cultivate within your mind the skill to tease apart the objective and subjective realities. And guaranteed, they are very deeply entangled in your current perspective. If you want to know what objective reality looks like, you have to do the looking at what is it that I'm seeing that is not objectively true.
Yeah, I only want to get into this. I mean, I just think it's an interesting question. It's a very interesting point, and I think that I've been struck recently by, like, the way I reframe it is that people are very magical. I sometimes see really, like, look at you, you're beautiful and magical, and happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
But look how magical you are. And I would say it requires part of you are objectively magical, but you're very subjectively magical.
What is objectively magical, though? There is no objectively magical.
Right. Like, would a kangaroo hopping by also feel the same way as I do, let's say, about you? Probably, maybe not. Or especially a tiger would probably see you differently. And my point is that these are very much our subjective experiences, and what makes people kind of like, especially the sort of great qualities of people, has a lot to do with us appreciating them. It's very, what's the word, is it quantum would be the term, or that it requires an observer. So much of people's magic requires an observer. They're not magical when they're sitting alone on the toilet. You know what I mean?
That's true. What is it? Well, actually, I don't think that is true. I think I feel most magical when I'm sitting in solitude in meditation, good deep rocket meditation. And they're not all like that. A lot of them are me just sitting there with my eyes closed and my hands on my legs, like, fucking gotta call that person back. Oh shit, I didn't answer that email. And then I'm like, meditate, don't do that. And then my mind's like, I just want, is it almost over? A lot of sessions are like that, but you just keep sitting and sitting and sitting. And then you start to, like, one day you're just like, and that's magic on a whole other level. And I think that that subjective, because again, objective reality is someone is sitting on a cushion with their eyes closed. That's objective reality. Subjective reality is I'm transcending dimensions of the universe and experiencing, like, direct contact with my higher self. That means nothing in objective reality. None of that exists. I can't hold it in my hand. It's nothing. Both are valid. Both these realities are real. The essential piece is beginning to understand that your subjective reality is completely within your control. I can choose to interpret things however I want.
Right. And are you saying also that people get carried away with that? Meaning, even though you told me, Albert, that was a terrible podcast, and I'm like, it was great. It went so well. That would be my subjective reality. And then like, we have a voice in our head all the time, or part of our brain going, what is this, like, neutrally stand back, and there, and a third party observer listening to this, but there also might be part of us going, whoa, I need this to be good, I need this to be great, and that's why I'm going to see it that way. And when people do that too much,
this is so important what you're saying. And I wanted to talk about this when we were in the video, and the guy saying that therapists often stoke this victimhood in their patients. It's also how that therapist is seeing that person in front of them. When I'm with someone, especially somebody who's paying me to help them transform their lives, I'm really looking for and finding and seeing and holding in my subjective reality, because objective reality is a human being is sitting right there and that's it. I'm seeing them as bigger than the problem that they're bringing to me. I'm seeing them as already perfect, whole, and complete, and it's my job to restore their perception of themselves as such. I'm seeing people as big people up to big things with good hearts, who are capable of more, who may have gone through some tough times, but are on a path towards personal growth and enlightenment. Like, I'm seeing that when I'm with somebody who's asking for my help, especially. I mean, I'm striving to be looking at people with eyes of love and under all circumstances in all situations, but I'm especially when I'm being paid to do so, seeing the best in my clients. And when you're going to somebody who sees you as broken, who sees you as a riddle or a puzzle to be solved or a problem to be managed, you're being called to show up as that.
I know what you're saying. I actually think there's a really beautiful, elegant point that you were making as well, is that one of the things that we should do, and that we usually do, is that you imagine or see the healed, brilliant, realized version of that person. And you need to do that so that you can map the progress of the therapeutic journey. And what's interesting about it is that by doing that, I've had a really big, for me, I guess, epiphany, or awareness about human nature, where I find that I've changed my view. I used to see people as like, oh, that person's troubled, or they're kind of rough. What's the word? Or somebody's messed up, or a hot mess of a person. Well, instead, I now see them as whatever kind of happened to them has created a kind of noise in front of their personality. And then I see this deeper part that everybody has potential to be pretty great, with very few exceptions. There are a few
Completely
exceptions.
agreed.
There are some people that maybe are unrecoverable, but everybody does have the potential to be kind of amazing, which is why you should do therapy, because you can't make these sort of quantum leaps or changes internally without a process to do it sometimes. I think sometimes people do a lot of things themselves, but that's why. And you can, and I'm sure you've had that experience where somebody you've been working with seemed like, boy, were they ever messed up. But when they started healing and started changing, they became kind of a different person. I'm not saying they're not who
Yes.
they were,
One
but
of my favorite clients, when he first came to me for the consultation, a part of me was like, maybe I shouldn't take this guy on. I felt, I really
he's so
questioned,
troubled.
like there was just something in the energy field that was like it just made me feel like, I don't know. And now we've worked together for 24 sessions. He's doing other stuff too. He's really committed to he's really committed. I mean, he's a superstar. He's such an inspiration. But who he is today, and even, starting like 3, maybe even 4 months ago, I just love the guy. I mean, he like shows up, he's bright, he's happy, he's smiling. He's like, "Hey, how you doing?" When those first few sessions, I'm like, "Hey, how are you?" "Hi, Cassandra." "All right, what are we here to work on today?" "Well," and now he's like, "Cool, ha ha ha." We're like laughing. He's all excited about his life. He's like joyful. He's on a mission. I'm just like, yes. Witnessing someone's transformation is such an honor.
I agree. Totally.
So, staying sane, we're talking about the importance of taking responsibility for your life, especially your inner life starts there. So, regardless of who did what to you, if you're still all angry and hurt and pissed off and disappointed and raging about something that happened a long time ago, all those feelings are your responsibility. Doesn't matter how they got there.
I would take it a step further. Like, one thing I really want to say too is that I don't want to make people feel bad if you're listening to this and you realize I kind of have a victim mentality, because the truth is the whole culture does. Like, we're a civilization with a victim mentality. The president of the United States has a victim mentality. It's very, very common, and it's getting worse in some level. So when you hear people say the victim mentality is not healthy, because it makes you stuck in life, because you stay the victim and you don't change, and you also repeat the story that you have no agency, I think it creates something called toxic victimhood, because there's a next step. If you are the victim, you need to blame people. So you're in the business of always blaming, and you become a blamer. The reason I'm messed up, or the reason I can't get ahead in life, is because of these people, or that, or my parents, once again. So when you change that, something changes. And I want to say that, don't feel bad. Don't feel bad if you think, oh, I kind of do that sometimes. Because
Feel good about yourself for recognizing it.
Yes. And also, you're just like pretty well everybody else who's been acculturated to be part of the sort of victim culture.
Yeah, we're all victims of victim culture.
Yeah, yes. Who can we blame? And exactly, we're all victims of victim culture. I love it. I love it.
It's accurate.
Yeah. And the bigger question is, what can we do about it? And what can we change to get out of it? And yeah, there is no, I am saying I am a recovering victim myself. I thought it was the right thing to do. I thought understanding the way I was mistreated and abused was essential for me healing. I'd say it's part of the story. It's a little bit of it, but it's not it's not as big as people think.
That's also part of the culture, is finding the story, right? Like, there's something about sitting on the phone with my friend Diane and being like, let's analyze this guy who hurt me, and like, what's wrong with him? There's like something fun about playing armchair psychologist to yourself, to your parents, to your friends, just like to anybody. It's like, oh, well, were they an only child? That explains it. Toxic narcissist. Like, we're all on this. There's something
exactly
cultural where we just love to like analyze people and think that that's
I noticed a weird thing.
Useful. And it's like, maybe like a little bit useful if you know how to use it, but mostly it's just blah, blah, blah. And it just spins cycles of negativity and suffering.
You know what's weird about that is I've caught myself doing exactly what you're describing. Meaning, a friend often is complaining about something in their life that's, you know, a breakup or something, and it is very troubling for them. And then I will sort of say, I might find that you know that maybe there's a reason why it happened, or there is something for you to learn from this. But I won't say that because I'm just being a supportive friend. And at that point, I will just say, yeah, maybe they weren't for you, and you know, and they sound like they're a lot of trouble anyways. So I'm kind of letting them off the hook, and maybe that's, I'm trying to sort of figure my way through it. I'm sort of saying maybe that's when you are just being a supportive friend and that is your role. They don't want to hear your critique of their personality at that moment, you know? And so that's okay. I see, this is, I made this documentary, You Are What You Act, and it really changed my view of life, is that we are
It's a
in.
really important documentary that everybody should go and watch.
Thank you. But what it really taught me was that we are in roles all the time, and that knowing roles, and that is actually a way of understanding the victim problem. It's not that you were not a victim. It's not that you weren't maybe abused. It's that staying in the role of the victim, where you're always blaming other people, is what creates the stuckness. It's the role. It's not the reality or the history. And so understanding that there are better roles to play in life, and this is my beef too, that we neglect the theatricality. I loved when you were getting all theatrical before, because I think that's a great way of making sense of life. And when we, and so sorry, I guess my point is that respecting the theatricality, or even learning about the theatricality of life, is empowering. Sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there.
No, I got you. I got you. I also want to say that when I go into these, like, I'm not mocking someone else. I'm mocking former me. I just want to make that very clear. I'm not over here like my life has just been great. I just came out knowing what to do, wise and always acting appropriately. No, my victim mentality almost took my life. I was just everybody hurt me so badly. I'm so depressed and I can't trust anybody. And I was like, it was so corrosive and toxic and taking my life away from me. It was rock bottom of victim mentality that made me say, you know the story. I was sitting on the floor. My husband had left me. I was in this empty apartment with a suitcase and a sleeping mat that my landlord had lent me. And I'm just like, and this is after doing years of experience in clinical psychology and coaching models and neurofeedback and biohacking and fucking seminars, like you name it. All right. I did all this stuff. I find myself here at the age that I was on this loaned out sleeping mat in this old apartment by myself. And how did I get here? And I'm just, my husband did this, he did that, he did this, he did that, he's not, and that's because blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay, either this is gonna lead me to suicide. Like I can't, it's either more of this is just an unbelievable nightmare I can't bear, or I'm going to get real spiritual real fast. And the next day, I discovered Matthew Brownstein, the Institute of Interpersonal Hypnotherapy. I read through all the curriculum. I was like, oh my God, this is everything I ever wanted to learn. I started doing the work. I pursued my education, etc.
Wow. See, and I think that's often true, that in these moments, some of our worst moments, that there's a part of us that's pushing us forward, or showing us, opening our eyes to something that sometimes right there, right in front of us, that can help make the change. I've really noticed that too. I would even take it a step further, that it's not just that I'm aware of my own, or I was aware of my own victim role, is that I think it's something that you can fall back into anytime. Because even though now I'm very aware of toxic victimhood, I still catch myself many times when life is hard, or when I think somebody did me wrong, going into a victim mentality. And again, it's this distinction. I would say it's not me going like, it's not that they didn't do me wrong, because they kind of did, let's say, but me dwelling on blaming them and feeling victimized, I've learned, is not gonna create much of an improvement. And but I think the point is, it still happens. You can be aware of it, and it can still happen to you all the time.
It happens to me all the time, because I will go so far as to define victimhood for myself. If you like it, take it. If not, leave it. But any moment in which I have an external excuse or an internal excuse for why I can't be good, kind, and at peace and generating positivity, because X, I'm in a victim state. A truly empowered state is, it doesn't matter what's going on out there. I'm choosing goodness, kindness, love, and peace. I'm not a saint. Malala did it. Nelson Mandela did it. Viktor Frankl did it. Cassandra McLean has not yet done it. But I'm striving to be like these heroes.
I love it. I think that's I hope, I was saying, maybe we're running out of time, so I can say that's an excellent summary of some strategy that might be available. But I want to thank everybody. This is a podcast that we're experimenting with called Staying Sane, and we're exploring toxic victimhood, our own, other people's, and the tendency in the self-help machine and therapy machine to create victims, as victim mentality. And that is what often, people don't know this, but it's often what keeps you stuck in life. So do you want anything to add before we sign off?
I would just say, choose having choice. Choose now. I can make choices for myself, for my quality of life, for my happiness and well-being. Even if you just say, I can, and right now I'm going to stay angry and mad at people. Okay, but just choose that you are choosing that. Choosing to be pissed off at my mom today. That's fine. Nothing's wrong with it. Or I'm choosing to take even the tiniest action, even if it's just sending a good thought from my heart. That's an action to build a bridge to love.
And if you were listening to this and you realized that you had estranged yourself from somebody that maybe you didn't need to, maybe you want to drop them an email or give them a call. Just an idea.
Well, thinking of you, emoji heart. If you're not ready and you need to build your inner resources of courage, you can just go to my website and book a session.
Right.
We'll get you resourced up, baby.
Get hypnotherapy. And of course, I'm Albert Nuremberg Hypnosis, also hypnology.net. Are you gethypnotherapy.com?
No, I'm McLean Hypnotherapy, but Get Hypnotherapy is my Instagram handle.
Okay.
At Get Hypnotherapy for my other content, but book a session at McLeanHypnotherapy.com.
McLeanHypnotherapy.com, soon to be a radio jingle. All right. Well, happy birthday again. I hope you have a wonderful day. And it's great talking to you.
Always a pleasure. Bye.
Always a pleasure. Okay.